Seems like everything's already been said, but let me put in my 2 cents. Do you know what next Monday is? This is not an exam, huh? September 11th, right? Some people believe that history began on that day, or that was the most important time in the history of the world, September 11th, 2001. The present regime and their supporters use fear, so-called patriotism, and a twisted view of religion to maintain this view. This is the drumbeat of the Bush regime these days. If you read the paper, turn on the television set, they're beating the drums constantly now. They're trying to draw our attention away from Iraq, and they're trying to focus more and more on the so-called war on terrorism, focused through 9/11. Our whole world is couched in the war on terrorism. Anything goes, you know that, including torture, which they now brag about. They brag about. Bush was in the paper today bragging about the fact that they have these secret prisons around the world where they are torturing people. To what extent, only God knows. They're also removing our civil liberties and a lot more. But for those who live in Chile, history could be said to have begun September 11th, 1973, when the CIA helped engineer the overthrow of Chile's democratically elected government, which resulted in the initial death of over 3,000 people, followed by the death and disappearance of thousands under the dictator Pinochet. History could be said to have begun on that September 11th, or any of the other 70 times the U.S. has invaded another country following World War II. Now, in the name of the Bush regime's narrow view of history, the U.S. invaded, occupied, and has unleashed a living hell in Iraq, based on lie after lie. As was mentioned earlier, I was in Iraq a number of times over the last 15 years, first during the Gulf War, the first Gulf War, where I saw the effects of U.S. bombing, and most recently during the sanctions that literally deprived that country of everything you can imagine. And the suffering and the death and the destruction that I witnessed during those visits is almost like a cakewalk today compared to what's going on. You know some of the figures. There's over 2,700 U.S. forces alone who have died. There are some 200,000 Iraqis who have died. There's civil war now resulting in the death, they say, of as many as 100 people a day through the civil war. And this is not counting the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people whose lives are maimed and a country that is destroyed. The institutions of our country have failed us. Government, be it Republican or Democrat, the courts, all the way up to the Supreme Court, rule in the favor of this regime with few exceptions. What can one say about the mainstream media? Even the churches, who do not align themselves with this regime, essentially remain silent. It's our duty as citizens of this country, as citizens of the world, to withdraw our consent and resist this madness. We only need, if you don't think that this is possible, and if it seems like a pie in the sky, and sometimes I feel that way myself, you know, all you have to do is look at Bolivia just over the last couple of years, through mass protests by the poorest people almost in the Western Hemisphere. They've driven out corrupt regimes there time after time. So if you're looking for an example, look to the poor of developing countries. In 1989, another example is the so-called Velvet Revolution that overthrew the government in Czechoslovakia. You should know that on September 11th, 2006, this coming Monday, it will be the 100th anniversary of the initiation of Mahatma Gandhi's nonviolent revolution in South Africa, where they gathered together with a lot of so-called folks that were, with a lot of folks who were so-called not accepted by the government there. In a few short weeks, on October 5th, you and I had the opportunity to join with that long tradition of nonviolent rebellion and mass nonviolent protest against this criminal and immoral Bush regime. It's time to drive out the Bush regime. Now is the time for all of us to act. Thank you.